Shine, Jesus, shine. Thank you so much. That's more than an interlude. That's a wonderful gift. Thank you so much. All right, folks, brace yourself. This is new. We have a parable. Have you had any parables? We got a parable here, ladies and gentlemen, and we know these parables by now and how we are supposed to take the characters and the actions as allegorical references to bigger and more important things. We got that, right? Give me a nod. Absolutely. And this was a fun one. I was thinking about this. This was fun in Bible study this Monday when we looked into this. Because we had people taking the message every which way. Remember that? We all had different interpretations, going different ways, interpreting the characters differently, which is to say, interpreting the message that Jesus was trying to get across differently. Interesting, huh? So I ask, do we know in our culture, in our time, what the Middle Eastern customs for weddings might be that Jesus is referring to? What it means to welcome a bridegroom with lamps shining. Are we familiar with details like before a wedding there was a negotiation and an arrangement not between the bride and groom on how they're going to live, but between their two families? Or the fact that marriage celebrations often went on for days and days, often because people were coming from out of town and it's not easy to travel, amongst many other reasons. Or for that matter, can we imagine what might have caused the bridegroom to be delayed? In my context now, I'm like, that must have been one heck of a bachelor's party that they had before. Or the fact that in their time, this was one of the only times that unmarried men and women had a chance to meet a large group of different people coming together, other single people. So you better believe those bridesmaids wanted to have a light that portrayed them favorably and might explain why they were reluctant to share. Competition, you know? So all of that and so much more could go into our interpretation. But I think what's really good for us to remember is that even if the references arrive in our reading as rather vague, we're saying, what is he referring to there? They would have been understood clearly in the context that Jesus shared them. Now, I've talked about this before. We'll do a quick refresher. Imagine someone trying to interpret 2,000 years from now a phrase like, I clicked on some cookies and I got spam. Or maybe what someone might think 2,000 years from now when they hear the phrase, the president tweeted. Can you just picture that? So, what do you imagine when I say the king? If that's God, take a message. I'm busy, okay? Imagine picture this in your head. If I say this phrase, cultural reference, the king was playing at Caesar's. You got Elvis at Caesar's Palace? Everyone get there? But even today, if you said that phrase to teenagers, they wouldn't get it, right? That's how it changes some of these cultural references. I mentioned John Wayne to a youth group back in 2013, and the kids looked at me and said, who's John Wayne? Does that give you perspective, huh? So, we could spend this time sharing what this parable meant in its rightful place and time. But I also want to share that it's important we remember that in Protestant churches, we can all read the same text and all be moved to engage our lives in the way God is speaking to us and nudging us uniquely. That's our Protestant experience, friends. We're all unique, and God is reaching out to each one of us uniquely. So let me give you a few basics. The disciples in this section of the gospel, remember, Jesus was challenging the scribes and Pharisees. They were challenging interpretations of a shared text. And now he's talking to the disciples and the crowds in this section of Matthew. In this section of the gospel, all the disciples are asking, Lord, all these things that you're talking about, when are they going to happen? And now there's a bunch of parables around Matthew 24, 25 in response to that question. When's it going to happen? How's it going to happen? We want the details. This is one of them, the bridegroom's parable. Next week, we have another one. I won't give it away, but I want to share that we close out Matthew in 2 weeks with the Reign of Christ Sunday, and we enter in then to the season of Advent. So Jesus spends these next few weeks answering in his way, when's it going to happen? How's it going to happen? And that gospel in 2 weeks really is the clearer version of Jesus' answer to the disciples' question of when. And you know these words. You've heard them before, I'm sure. When I was hungry, you gave me food. Thirsty, you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. Naked, you clothed me. Sick, and you took care of me. And the disciples say, well, when did we do that? And Jesus says, just as you did it to the least of me. Or just as you, I said that wrong. Just as you did it to the least of us, you also did it to me. Which is to say, as Jesus repeats in so many ways, it's already happening. In today's parable, the bridesmaids are us. The bridegroom is Jesus. And the lamps that are held as a sign, the lamps that are held up are a sign of respect and welcome and celebration for the occasion. What Jesus is telling us is welcome me wholly and completely with the best thoughts, the best intention, and the best preparation that you can. In other words, be the Christian you would be if I showed up on your doorstep right now, Jesus says. Be the Christian you would be if I showed up in front of you right now. Because sooner or later, I'm going to show up on your doorstep, Jesus says. And some of us picture that doorstep in our theological construction to be judgment after death when we meet Jesus. Others, like myself, tend to believe Jesus is already on my doorstep, and I see him everywhere. That's the beauty of the Protestant faith. We find God's revelation uniquely, challenge it, continue to grow, and live into it. So how do we do that, friends? How do we shine that light to be welcoming, absolutely and completely welcoming to Jesus when he shows up? We all welcome Jesus with a shining light already, friends. A light unique as our interpretations immediately of the parables in the Bible study. We all have a unique light, each and every one of us. How do you shine your light? Quick survey as I was writing this down. Some of us are out there serving the needy. Some are sharing their talents of music or words. Some of us are sharing our financial resources. Some of us engage the big picture of the church in the future, in the ministry. Some of us visit or call or send cards to the homebound. Some of us quietly work in the background, making sure the space is in good condition for other ministries. Some of us take time to intentionally pray for others. I can go on. Did you recognize yourself in any of those? Any I missed? There's plenty, I'm sure. The point is that we all shine our lamps to welcome Jesus, and we all do it uniquely commensurate with our gifts and talents and passions. And we do that because we all interpret God's call uniquely, each of us. And we do that because, wait for it, God is calling each of us uniquely. Remember the metaphor I've shared before on paint on a canvas? A painting is beautiful because of the different colors that work together in juxtaposition with one another. Unique from one another, but together, complementing. And what happens if we try to blend all those colors to think in one thought or all be the exact same? What happens if you blend all the colors, you get this goopy gray-brown color? Not very pretty, right? That's our Protestant faith in recognizing how Jesus calls us and how we respond with our shining of our light. And this is why I asked this week in the newsletter and in the Friday commentary this question. I shared it last week in the sermon as well. I asked, what is your hope for the church? And I continue that I invited you to respond. Honestly, say, this isn't rhetorical. I want to hear from all of you. What is your hope for your church? And I wrote this. Let me rephrase that. I encourage you to respond. Please, 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 double please respond. So that I may work and pray toward your hopes and dreams and call and support it. Or determine that I'm unable to do so. And let God guide me to a call more commensurate to my own hopes and dreams for our congregation and church. And I mean that, friends. If I hear a majority response that we want things the way it was done 10 years ago, then I'll say it's time to find a pastor willing to do that. Because I was hired and commissioned from this congregation to engage the community and grow the church. And friends, all things considered, including COVID, I think we're moving in that direction. I'm doing my best, and I hope it's recognized. So again, I ask you, and I'm taking the time in the sermon because it is that important. Send us an email, a phone call, a letter. If you want to keep it anonymous, write it down, put it in the basket and back without your name. Put it in the mailbox. We have a protective slot so it can just get tucked in there. Let us know what your hope for your church is. And that's important because, call me crazy, but I'm pretty sure that your answer to what is my hope for my church is also going to define what kind of light you're shining, what your lamp looks like, how it is shining out to welcome the bridegroom Jesus. And remember, friends, your lamp is unique. But what happens when we take all those unique lamps together? The beautiful light that shines, the beautiful welcome Jesus gets. So do me a favor, send that response. And I'll be guiding my ministry into the future and my work in the church based on those responses. And is it fair for me to say if I get no responses, I have a mandate to do whatever I want? You see what I'm saying? But to be clear, our light, each uniquely and collectively, our light needs to be shining brightly, friends. Jesus deserves that. And is there anything more important that a church or a pastor should be working toward than shining that light to welcome Jesus? And good news is you don't do it alone, we do it together. So let's walk forward on that path. Our hope for the church and how we might shine our light. Peace be with you, friends. Dick Lindy, was that shorter? Okay. Our hymn is I Belong to the King, number 290. case there was any doubt, the king referred to there was not Elvis. Absolutely. Friends, it is the time where we, in healthy and safe times, share our plate offering. We're not passing money in the church, but there is a offering plate in the back, and I really encourage, if you can, give to the mission and ministry of this church. As always, I want to tuck in a mission moment, something unique happening in the church, and lift it up as another way we give. And I also invite, if you have a mission you'd like to share during this time, please let me know and we can make sure you can come up and share. But we talked about the many unique ways we hold our lights up to welcome Jesus, and I'm asking you now to commit to one thing throughout this winter. Just in the winter months, let's start there. One thing that you will do to shine your light and welcome Jesus. I'm asking you to prayerfully consider what your lamp looks like and how it contributes to the shining light we share. What you bring to the winter time of darkness and cold. What light and warmth you give. And if your light is not shining brightly now in your self-reflection, let's talk, let's find a way to trim that lamp together, to keep the metaphor going. And if you're actively shining your light right now, I ask, can you commit to keep that lamp trimmed and your light shining throughout our winter months? A church is not about walking in the doors at scheduled times when it's convenient for us to spend time with Jesus. It's a place that is shining a bright light because at any moment Jesus is arriving. Can we make that commitment, each of us, just one thing, to keep that light shining? Thanks, friends. That's out. Holy God, we ask your blessing on these gifts to the mission and ministry of United Protestant Church. May they help us realize your will for our work in your world and move in that direction. Thank you, Holy God. We pray in your Son's name. Amen. Please be seated. We come to a time of choice and concerns, announcements of ministry, testimonies, all of that. How's it going? Good. Are you hearing okay, kid? Good. Lindy? So we lift up to make sure everyone